Welcome, everybody, to the Digital Nomad Experts podcast by Commute. Today, we've got Jeff and Marissa, and we're going to talk about 6 random locations we've lived as a digital nomad. And we're going to caveat this by saying that none of these were on chapter with Remote Year, with Wi-Fi Tribe, with any of the other companies that set up month-long or year-long chapters in specific places. These are places we just kind of ended up by chance, like by somebody inviting us, by I wonder what it's like here, and we just ended up there. And the other caveat is we actually had to work there, so we're gonna have to give you a review of whether or not it was a good or a bad spot as a digital nomad. And we plan this so we're not going to give you a whole bunch of bad spots so you don't end up leaving the podcast thinking, well, here's 6 places to not go. No, there's some good there's good stuff in there, and hopefully you find it interesting. So before that, Marissa, how are you?
I am good. I've just spent the last week and a half or so in Mexico, in Playa del Carmen, so that was a ton of fun. I feel like every time I land there, I'm just like, I'm home. It feels amazing. I was at the wedding of one of our nomad friends, and there was a big group of all, a bunch of Wi-Fi Tribe people, and then extended nomad people, our 6 degrees of, what do we call it? 6 degrees of Wi-Fi Tribe.
6 degrees of Wi-Fi Tribe, yeah.
So we had a good crew there, and it was honestly so much fun. And it was just a good time and a good reminder that these really are lifelong friends and just fun people to continue seeing. And I feel like I don't even know how many times I've been in Playa. I also got a Mexican residency while I was there, which maybe is a topic for another day. I'm officially
it's not.
It's a temporary Mexican resident. Yeah. So
how did you pull? I thought you had to overstay your visa and then apply for the 3 plus 1 year. How did you do that?
You can do it by certain income that you receive, by a certain amount that is in your bank account, or what I learned when I was picking up some cash from my friend to use to pay the fees there. He told me that some people there pretend to have Mexican children. This was not the status that I went. I do not necessarily condone this route, but apparently
we are not condoning.
I do not condone. I am not a lawyer. Do not. We shouldn't say
put
do
a
this.
Foot down. It's like, Marissa.
But apparently people pretend to also have a child in that country and get fake birth certificates. So I'm not, again, saying you should do that. I'm just saying that some people do. This is not what I did. I do not have children in Mexico. But there are a bunch of different ways that you can get a temporary residency to start. And then you have to renew it in 1 year. Then you get it for 3 more years. And after 5 years, you're officially a resident there, which doing it for some tax purposes. That is a story for another day if things over my head. But yeah, I'm officially a temporary Mexican resident. I can go, when I go in line there, I went in the Mexican resident line. I know. I was like, this is the first time I've ever done this. I've never been a resident of another country.
Dirty.
In addition
Jumping
to mine.
lines.
I know.
While traveling, that's talking dirty.
I know. Super exciting.
Amazing.
So anyway, there's a bunch of hoops I had to jump through, but Mexico, you can picture me.
I can picture you more or less going a little bit full-time in Mexico.
I know. I love it there. So have the option to, regardless, it's good for some tax purposes, which I'll talk about in another episode, but that's my Mexican update. Tell me, you're also in Mexico on a different side of the country. Where are you and how you doing?
Yeah, we set up our own co-living space here down in Oaxaca. We've got a big house. I think we are now 9 or 10 people.
Yeah.
Like that. Very similar to the Wi-Fi Tribe days. I haven't done
like a big house.
mean, I do the co-living like often, but I haven't done the big house thing in
just
quite a while.
Just with all friends, yeah.
With all friends, yeah, exactly. So I'm remember it's been a while since I've had this many people around me, and I forget how active everything is and all the events all the time, and every night dinner, and I'm having to go back, and we have to do an episode on things that you should I should have known coming into becoming a digital nomad.
Yes.
And one of them is like the ability to say no. I'm just remembering that.
It's
clicking in my head.
Yeah.
It's like that memory in my head going, oh, Jeff, no, it's a Tuesday.
Right.
You don't have to go mezcal tasting on Tuesdays.
Or
you can save that for Friday, and you're not going to miss too much. Nothing good happens after 1 a.m. on a Tuesday mezcal tasting. So you got to dial that back. But it is tempting. I get the bad FOMO, especially when there's a big group down here. I think our chat, I've had to mute it. That's how big it is. I think it's like 45 people, something like that.
It's
going to be big crowd.
So it's funny. So I was with a bunch of people who will be, when I was in Playa, who will be joining you in the next couple of days or over the next week or so. And it feels like the whole world of all of our friends. Everyone's like, "Are you coming?" I almost like booked a ticket. I was like, I feel like I can't not go. Everyone I know is going to be in Oaxaca for Day of the Dead, but I got other things going on, and I was like, I'm tired. I can't go jumping around. It's sort of the same thing you said too. Even just being on Playa for a week, I was like, I just said yes to dinners and yes to this, and I want to see people on there because it was more of a limited time and limited time with those people. And it's really a lot of learning to say no and set boundaries as a nomad. But I feel like y'all are going to have an amazing time in these next week because I feel like I literally feel like I know 30 or 40 people who will be in Oaxaca for Day of the Dead and the days leading up and after it. So it will be a lot of fun for sure and not much work, but that's okay from time to time. That's good.
Yeah, exactly. I'm planning on, actually I do have a full slate of work, so I'm going to have to dial back the going out as much. I mean, around Day of the Dead, there's going to be a 2-day gap where I'm going to be not quite so, because I've never done that. I have to do that.
You have to. It's fun.
You got to do that. That's the whole point of coming here. That's why we booked this thing 6 months ago.
There's a time and a place.
There's a time and a place. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so this was booked well in advance. Let's talk about stuff that was a little bit more sporadic across our history. So again, the topic of this conversation is 6 random locations we've lived as a digital nomad, and we can dig back as far as we want, and we're going to pick places. We're going to talk about what it was like to work there, what the climate was like for digital nomads, the actual climate, and whatever comes to mind.
What we liked, what we didn't like. Yeah. You want me to kick it off?
Do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, we'll do it. So these are a little bit random, as Jeff said. It's places we didn't live with other co-living chapters or official setup things. We ended up there, for whatever reason we did. And places that we lived for, 3-4 weeks or longer at least, that we really got a feel for what it was like and worked there, spent our days and all of that. So number 1 on my list was Bocas del Toro, Panama. So these are a set of little islands in the north, I would say the north of Panama, almost to Costa Rica. You're like really close to the border of Costa Rica. Yeah. It's a funky little place. It has a lot of Caribbean feel, not quite like Jamaica, but it almost has a little bit of that sort of like Jamaican vibe in it. So it's pretty unique and different to the rest of Panama, but it's got some Panama and Costa Rica feel to it. It's kind of a little mixture of all of it. So I ended up here. I love that. Your question was like, how do we end up in these places to begin with? So I had actually been in Nigeria, and then it was actually in between that and Bolivia when I met up with you for the first time. I had like a month or so basically, unaccounted for in my calendar. And I was talking to a friend of mine, Murray, who I met in Thailand. Again, this is why you're going to get the full sporadicness. Yeah, I think he was like episode 7, 8, 9, or 10 or something like that. Who's actually in the States right now. He's from South Africa. He's going to be in Atlanta, if you're listening, Murray, a couple weeks from now. So I'll get to see him, which is super fun. Yeah, so you really get the full, I feel like I threw out 10 country names just of ways I've met people and how I ended up places. Anyway, Murray at the time, I forget what country, he was somewhere in Latin America. I think he was in Brazil and needed a visa to go somewhere, I can't even remember, but had to go to the South African consulate, which was in Panama. This is like the most roundabout. It was only South African consulate anywhere in any countries near him. So I was just messaging him and I was like, I've got this time to kill. I don't know where I'm going to go. And he was like, I'm going to Panama, in a couple weeks. I have to, leave my visa there. So he had to leave his passport to get his visa for a couple weeks. So he's like, I'm going to stay there. Do you want to join me? So I said, yes. And that is how we choose destinations, as Jeff and I did a fun episode. That was maybe 2 episodes ago from now, I think. So anyway, that was how I randomly ended up there. And then we chose Bocas. Basically, we've got a good network of nomad friends now. And I knew that was places that Diego had lived and loved it there. So I sent a couple messages to people I knew who had been there and just said, where do you recommend? What do you recommend? So of that, and this will give you a little bit of the lay of the land of Bocas, as it is, we call it Bocas for short. It is a tiny little place that is very backpacker heavy in my mind. It's not great Wi-Fi, which is probably, this was back in 2019, I should say. So the Wi-Fi is probably better than it was then. I still would guess it's not the best of all the places. But because of that, it's not super digital nomad friendly, I would say. It's not the main community there. there. It's more backpackery of like kind of younger party hostel. But the best place on the main island, there's like a main island that most people stay. And the one hostel is Diego's favorite place, Selena, has great Wi-Fi, but it is like party central. Like it smells like beer. It's beautiful, like right on the water. It's pretty cool. Very cool, I would say. But, you know, there's like loud music banging till like minimum of 2 a.m. and it's just not, you know, where you want to be as a nomad, and maybe if you're a little bit older, definitely not where you want to be.
I'm glad you said it.
Yeah,
like, oh God,
it's not
terrible.
Yeah, I would have liked that maybe like 12 years ago. It would have been a whole lot of fun, like right out of college. So anyway, that was really like, I had messaged people ahead of time because I knew had I not known anyone, I probably just would have said, oh, Selena, it's there, it looks like a cool location, the photos are nice, I know it has good Wi-Fi. I probably would have ended up staying there, but because I did my research, asked friends, I had a friend, there's also a Selena across on a little island called Bastimentos Island, and a little place it's right by Red Frog Beach. So in this side of the island, you have to take a boat. So you take like little boats everywhere to go. So I had to take a boat from one island to another little island. So like there's no grocery stores to access. There was maybe like 2 other hotels, a couple of houses, super desolate. But there was another Selena on the other side that was more for the like adventure traveler kind of working type, and there was a great co-working space. There was actually a whole group of a lot of people who lived in a sailboat community, so people who sail around the world. I know, this was a fun one. I met a lot of like full-time sailors who parked their boats in a marina on this island. Also, because a lot of people escape the Caribbean, where there's a lot of like hurricanes in the season that I was there. But if you go to Panama, there's not. So there was a lot of people who worked as digital nomads who lived on sailboats, and they would, you know, park their boats in this marina that was a quick walk from where I was, and they would come and work at the co-working space at Selena where I was staying. So it was a funky little place. There was just a couple of other nomads, some of the sailors, or people who lived on the sailboat full time and would come and work there. But it was super quiet, almost no one there. So every day I would just like walk to the beach, walk for an hour and a half. Like there's no gyms, no facilities, no nothing. Like it feels like you're sort of living in the jungle. Like there's monkeys everywhere. There's sloths everywhere. There's like tons of like critters and creatures and crawly things everywhere. So if you don't like that, it might not be your place. But I love like the jungle feel. And it's desolate. Like if you wanted to go to the grocery store to get stuff, there's a boat that comes only 2 times a day. So like morning or afternoon, you could probably pay a lot more to like hire a personal boat. But if you want to do it, it comes twice a day. You go on land to like get your groceries, you know, come back. Or if you wanted to go out to dinner to somewhere new. So to me, again, I'm sharing this because it was a funky little place, very different than the way I would normally live nomad life. There was almost zero nomad community. There was a couple of people living full time working at this like yoga hostel nearby. So there was some cool people. It was a very strange month.
That's very Caribbean. That area is like,
yeah.
I feel like Bocas was kind of hot for a minute.
Yeah.
Maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, it seemed like everybody I knew was going to Bocas, and it had its digital nomad phase. It's weird. Me and Diego were talking about that with the predictions of the future of digital nomad stuff and these hotspots that arise.
Yeah.
Almost seems like some random,
It came and
everybody, all of a sudden, like this year was the year of Georgia, Tbilisi.
Yeah.
It was unplanned. It just like happened.
Right.
And then
Right.
like now Oaxaca. I don't know how I ended up in the crosshairs of these things, but they just happen.
They
just
do.
get like in style. You know,
Yeah.
Cape Town was like in style for a while. And Bocas, I feel like
Bocas kind of came and went. I think it's because it never got enough Wi-Fi. This is my hunch. I think if the Wi-Fi had gotten way stronger, also the accommodations aren't super nice. Like it's not great. Apartments are kind of old or beachy. They're cool. To me, it's more of a cooler place to, I don't know, maybe spend a week and keep moving on. But I do think Panama as a country is really underrated. Like the beaches, like the day trips that we got to do, you know, over the weekend, we'd go to some of these just like desolate little island tropical beaches. It feels like, what was that show when we were growing up that they get Gilligan's Island? It felt kind of like Gilligan's Island.
Yeah.
So I loved that. Like, I loved the weekend trips, and I loved having, almost no one there. Like, I would go walk the beach for hours in the morning and just see maybe like one other person on the most like beautiful, pristine beaches with like jungly feels. So if you're, there's a time and a place for that. I was there. I just got a lot of work done. I was there with Murray, and like I had him as a friend, a companion. Like, we got, I had somebody to eat my meals with. We met. We ended up hanging out with people on the sailboats. Like, it was random. So it's not like if you're a new nomad and you're looking for community.
Sorry, do I have a memory of a Jaeger conversation?
How do you remember this?
I don't know, but I have got this weird word association. I'm associating Bocas del Toro with Jaeger, and I'm pretty sure it has to do with you.
Jeff, it was a bad night of Jaeger. I don't know how you remember that. I forgot. Clearly, I forgot about it because I don't remember that night well.
Every night of Jaeger is a bad night.
It was a bad decision. We had our sailboat friend had a bottle of Jaeger, and we were on the beach, and it was not a pleasant morning, I'll just say.
God,
I don't know how you remember that. That's really funny. So that's Bocas in a nutshell.
Random stuff. It sounds kind of familiar because I've been in Puerto Viejo in Costa Rica.
Close by.
Just an hour north of that, and it's got that Caribbean like reggaeton vibe to it.
Yeah.
The internet sucks. It's very backpackery.
Yeah.
And it's actually a lot of people from Puerto Viejo would make a run to Bocas.
Yeah.
Because you could just do the border crossing and renew your visa.
Yeah.
And it almost feels like a sister city. And I think they even tried to do a digital nomad thing there in Puerto Viejo for a little while. And that had a minute, and again, it just kind of faded off.
I think it's Wi-Fi troubles. I wonder if like once Starlink and some of these other Wi-Fi companies will bring those places back. Because they're cool, they're funky.
Yeah.
And I'd say that like one other thing that just ties like or just explains Bocas in a nutshell, and then we'll move to yours is it's well known for something called Filthy Friday, which is every Friday. This is why it's like the backpacker out. Every Friday they have a big, I call it like a bar crawl, but it's like an island crawl. So like you get together all in one place. They give out the tank tops that say like Filthy Friday. You go from one place to another like throughout the day, and you just get more and more drinks and back up on the main island. So that gives you a feel for like what Bocas is known for. But there is a lot more to Panama. There are some amazing islands nearby, really and truly, and maybe it'll make a comeback. But again, really we just want to share like some random places we've ended up that were good, bad, otherwise. Maybe it sounds appealing to you, maybe now it's not on your list, but you can get a feel for some things that you're looking for based on, do you want to be around people? Do you not? Do you want to be around, lots of things to do or not? There's lots of options. So that's my number one. What's yours, Jeff?
Before I jump in, I just say I hate to admit it, but I'm getting the Caribbean beach nostalgia vibes.
Oh yeah?
I think maybe
you want to be there now?
Been maybe I need a week or two reset in the water. I don't know.
You need a good Filthy Friday? Ooh,
I don't know if I need that. I said I need maybe a little bit in the water.
The Caribbean water.
Friday.
You do. But one thing I do want to say, if you're thinking about Bocas, so on the little island that I lived on, which was by Red Frog Beach, it's a beautiful, beautiful, typical beach. But the main island where most people stay is not as great for beaches. It's more of the, like the Caribbean, the docks that really just kind of like go over the water and like the houses on stilts. It's that kind of feel. So it's really cool. It really is worth a visit, a look. It's really unique. And as Jeff has said, if you're just feeling that Caribbean kind of cool wooden shack over the water with a hammock, like go explore it. And I hope you get back to the Caribbean beach soon, Jeff.
All right, let's bring it to my first on the list, recent one, which would be Mokran Village in Serbia. And that sounds random because it is pretty random. It is a village of, actually, my run that I used to run in the mornings was the village. That's how big it is.
Oh,
so
wow.
I would run the perimeter of the village, and that's about
pretty big.
it's about 5K.
So I was like, well, how far are you running? Depends.
No,
How
I
in
don't run
shape
very
are
far.
you, Jeff?
That's the caveat is I don't run very far as far as my 38-year-old knees allow. But so I ended up there in a very chance place by chance. It was, again, similar to your situation. I had a gap. Like I was going to be going from Romania, and I had a 3-week gap between then and Georgia, Tbilisi. And these were like firm plans, Romania and Tbilisi. I was like, I'll just figure it out. And, you know, it was one of those situations where it's like I was looking into booking a place. I was going to book in Istanbul, or I was going to book in Saranda in
Albania.
Albania, thank you. I start mixing up the Balkans a little bit, and I start losing track of what's what.
People love that's an up and coming beach town too.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I'm with a few people that were just there. I was in between those, and I was like, I didn't have a great feeling about either one of them. And I know I always book too far in advance instead of just letting things happen. Just let it happen, and the right answer is going to arise. And then to the people that I'm staying with here, they said, hey, we've got a 3-week period where we're going to stay in this co-living space in Serbia. And it was the perfect 3 weeks. I was like, yep, that's it. That was my moment. That's when it needed to happen. And it was in a village in the middle of nowhere. And I mean the middle of nowhere. You're driving through what looks like, for those of you from the States, like a lot of the flatlands, like Ohio kind of thing, where you're just driving and it's flat, corn, like nothing for miles. That's what it's like going to this place. There's absolutely nothing there. And then they've built this co-living space, which is co-living and a co-working space all in one. And it's just kind of like I've talked about in this podcast before. Like it's exactly how you would imagine a drug rehab facility, because it's just like isolated from everything.
Yeah.
They've got a restaurant on the premises. Like you don't lift a finger. Like they feed you, they give you coffee. You like anytime you try to do something for yourself, there's somebody running up to do it. It's kind of uncomfortable. It's like a little too much. Like I want to do some of these things. Let me be self-sufficient. I need to maintain some degree of autonomy in my life. But it was actually turned out to be really, really cool, because you've got this really great routine when a lot of times it's hard to maintain some semblance of a routine. We've talked about this a lot on the podcast, but it can get very difficult. And when you just settle into a place like that, you've got such a strong routine around. The gym is in the same spot every day. You've got your meals are anchor points. So I'm eating at 9:00. The next meal is at 2:00. So that means mentally I've got 5 hours of work. And you just set that up as your day. Like I got 5 hours of work, and then between 2 to 7, you've got another 5 hours of work, and you've got very few distractions. So I was able to get a ton of work done. It wasn't the most cultural experience until the very end. Like it was very, very low in culture until the very, very end.
Because you weren't leaving the co-living, not because Serbia doesn't have culture. Yeah.
Had nothing to do with, I get to rephrase it. Yeah. And once we did get outside and start doing, the intent of it was to be focused and to do work. And that's why we didn't get outside and do much. But once we got outside, like the last weekend we were there, they had a village celebration in the town square, and it's like everybody was there. I think it was maybe like 5,000 people or something. But and all the families come and they cook dinner and they have like the sack races and all that kind of stuff. And one of the guys that works at the co-living space, he handed me the tongs at the fireplace, and he's like, "You're the grill master now." And I'm like, "Okay." So
that's awesome.
Grill master. He handed me a beer and he handed me some tongs. He's like, "You're cooking for the family and whoever else walks up." I'm like, hey, so I just like grilled for 2 hours and drank beer with the family.
Did you succeed? Were you a good grill master?
I do pretty well in that capacity. Yeah,
never seen you be a grill master.
It's an area where I thrive. Well, it's got a lot going on for it. I mean, people bring you beer. People walk up and give you company. Some people, it's like a kitchen. People just kind of congregate around the grill, because they can just sneak a few bites, and like it's a good standing around area.
That's a cool way to meet local people.
Yeah, exactly. But from what I found from a cultural perspective, I found the Serbians to be like extremely giving, very, very generous with their time, very generous with including you in everything, very, very polite and thoughtful about everything. Amazing. So if you're not from there, you don't get treated like an outsider. You're like welcomed in. You feel very, very much like you're included in everything. So I was left with a very warm impression. That said, when you're running around a village of just 5,000 people and you look clearly like a blonde-haired, blue-eyed American, you get some looks.
Yeah.
Like people looking at you like, why is she running? Here? What are you doing here? What is going on here? So you don't quite fit in, but you're not treated like an outsider. So yeah, it was very very random, very good place if you're looking for something super, super stable, something easy. You want everything planned for it, or if you want to get a ton of work done, it's probably a good spot. So in terms of community, if there's people there who are also doing co-living,
Right.
great. We arrived and there were 0 people. We were the community.
Right.
And then some people showed up. So little hit and miss. I wouldn't bank on it. Internet's good, food's gonna be good, people are good. So
Right.
it checks a lot of boxes, but it really depends on what you're going for. And if you get that cabin fevery type of thing, like some people, I was very similar to Bolivia. Just nothing. You better be comfortable where you're at because
I like that. If I'm with good friends, I'm like, I love that so much now.
You could have
I
loved
know
it.
a lot of our people who like love big party or just like need a bar scene or need coffee shops or just to see other people. It's like maybe not your
Nope.
thing. But it is, as you said, it's a really good way to get a lot of work done. And I think it's also important to note, like, we want to share where we chose within these countries and why we chose them and what those experiences can be like. So Bocas and where Jeff was in the middle of nowhere, Serbia, are 2 specific examples. But just to sort of share as well, like Panama City, a lot of people will go there. A lot of people do Panama stuff for like visa, residency stuff. Again, a whole nother conversation. But Panama City is kind of like Miami. Like there's a whole, it's big high rises on the water and all of that. And then likewise in Serbia, a lot of people really love going to Belgrade. I've driven through the countryside of Serbia, but I actually haven't spent time in the city there as well. So there's different options within both of these countries, but we wanted to share some random experiences of different cities, not cities, co-living, not co-living, like things that we've done. So anything else to share about Mokran for you, Jeff?
Now that you mentioned Belgrade, I was there for just a day and a half, 2 days,
Yeah.
and we need to do an episode of regret. Episode of places I regret having
like not staying
spent-
longer. Ooh,
not staying
I got
long
some for
enough.
that. That's a good
Yeah,
one.
yeah, and that's got to be top of my list.
Interesting. All right, so back to Belgrade.
Yeah, we'll put a bookmark in that one. So, okay, so bring us around to number 3. We're going to take a quick pause right there to tell you about our remote travel jobs daily. Are you currently looking for a job that's going to allow you to become a digital nomad and work and travel around the world? Well, you've got exactly what you're looking for. Every week, as part of our free plan, we handpick 2 jobs that are perfect for becoming a digital nomad that'll allow you to work and travel around the world while you're doing it. That's 2 jobs per week for free. We also have a premium plan in which we send out 2 handpicked jobs that are also perfect for becoming a digital nomad every single day, Monday through Friday. So that's 40 handpicked jobs by us that are ideal for becoming a digital nomad. So make sure you take a look at these 2 plans. It is beachcommute.com/travel jobs. That's beachcommute.com/travel jobs. All the details will be there.
So number 3 on the list, so my second one is Lagos, Nigeria. So this is definitely not on the typical nomad path, not on the typical nomad route. I know very few people, actually, I think, nomad or otherwise, who have been to Nigeria, except I have a couple friends from college who are have Nigerian family. And they're like, you lived in Lagos, you went here. Like they were so excited because almost nobody else goes. I will say Lagos gets a pretty bad rap just in terms, I know when I was going there, my family members, other people, friends were like, why are you going? Don't go. It's dangerous. It's full of scam artists. It's this, it's that. Like the government is full of, it's like a lot of like scams and not safe is, I would say, what comes to mind when people think of Nigeria. So I'll share kind of the good and the bad of it. It was a hard month because living-wise, it is not great for nomads. The Wi-Fi is literally non-existent. Like the Airbnb that we had was like, we have Wi-Fi, it's great, it's whatever. It literally was like 0.01 like download speed, like almost didn't exist. But on the flip side, you can get SIM cards there. And it's really cheap to get cell phone data. So basically, I think I paid $25 for, I can't remember how much, but a lot of data that lasted me like 2 weeks. So I probably paid $50 in total, which is like a cell phone, that's not super uncommon, but to use for absolutely everything, streaming, video calls, whatever it was great. So that's possible, but the Wi-Fi pretty much just like doesn't exist. And then on top of that, I would say the even harder thing was in Lagos, the power would go out every couple of hours for quite a while. So a lot of the Airbnbs or like in the nicer neighborhoods do have generators, which we had, but it would go out for a little while, take a bit to kick on. Sometimes the generator would run out of juice. So sometimes I would just be like, because I had cell phone data, my Wi-Fi still worked, I could still work, but I was like in the dark. So I remember being on one video call with something, doing like an interview with someone, and the power went out and I kept talking, but I was like literally in a pitch black room. I think it like shined my flashlight on me. I was like, this looks creepy. So anyway, not the best for nomad life. It's possible if you're just doing work where you don't need many calls, or you're writing, or you're doing, I don't know, stuff that's just sort of by yourself. But anyway, Wi-Fi is hard. Living in that environment is also hard. Sometimes like the lights just, you kind of take it, I would say a lot, you really take it for granted until you don't have electricity, power, you know, things you'd normally use. The electricity would heat the water, so you couldn't take a hot shower. Like there's a lot that goes with that. So I would say it was a hard month for that reason. It's not your typical just like, oh, let me just live luxuriously and in a beach and whatever. You know, not your what a lot of us go for as nomads, or why you think about maybe becoming a nomad. But at the same time, to me, it's a big way that I learn, and I remember the privilege that we have, and you understand how other people are living their day-to-day lives in different cultures and countries and continents. And to me, that's a big reason why I love travel and I love the adventure. So as I look back on a lot of my travels, I would say those types of months or weeks or days or travel experiences that I go through, those are my most memorable, are some of my favorites, because it's where the growth happens. It's where you learn. It's where you become really grateful for a lot of things. So anyway, there was a lot of that. I also didn't feel as a female that I could walk around a lot of places alone. So was there with a male friend, and also there was like two other girls who we knew. I was with someone from remote year and two of his remote year friends. So I had to walk everywhere with him pretty much. If I wanted to go, so I was like, all right, are we going to the gym? Because I don't want to walk alone. Are we all going out to eat somewhere? Because I can't really walk alone. And I love to just walk for exercise. I like to walk around to explore places. And I could walk around a little bit, but I didn't feel like I kind of had full autonomy. I definitely stood out a lot. And it's really interesting safety-wise there. So again, everyone's feeling is like, it's really unsafe. And I think because people had told me that, I was a little more kind of on edge aware than I normally would be. So like even outside, they had like a Pizza Hut or a restaurant or an ice cream shop. Like there's a guy with security with a large gun just standing outside of every shop. So I was like, in your mind, you know, it's like those wouldn't be there if they weren't needed in some capacity. So in my, you know, it's like, I understand that this place is theoretically not safe, but I never personally felt unsafe, if that makes sense. Like I never felt, I don't know, nothing bad ever happened. I didn't have the feeling that something bad was going to happen, except that like visually there's all these cues that something bad should happen. The only time people really like we'd experienced something like that. So Lagos is actually really well known for its amazing nightlife. So I remember the first time we're like, all right, where are the cool places? Like I had a friend who's good at getting in the know. So we went probably around midnight to what was supposed to be like one of the best, you know, Nigerian nightlife clubs. And there was not a single person there. And we're like, did we get the wrong place? Like, clearly we're not in the loop. We've got our sources wrong. And later we asked a taxi driver the next day, and he was like, what time were you there? 12:30? Oh, he was like, that doesn't get going until like 4. And I was like, what? Like, how do people do this?
The after party place.
It's like, but that's like the party. So anyway, on the way home from some of those nightlife places, we did get like more corruption. That's the word I was looking for earlier. We would get stopped by the cops who were very corrupt, and they would stop you to ask you for money. You know, they have these big machine guns, and they're like, give me money for like a soda. And you're like, what? No, and you just kind of keep driving. So anyway, it's a weird dichotomy of places, but I will say Nigerian people are amazing. Like they are friendly, they are warm, like the music, the Afro beats there. So apparently a lot of, I would say, music worldwide, everything sort of stems from Afrobeats in Nigeria and in places like that influences the rest of the world. So the music is absolutely wonderful, insane. When you get to know people, they are amazing. So there's a lot of greatness to Nigeria. there's cool beaches we went to. There's cool, like I did some cool trips to the mountains, and I think I've told some stories about visiting, like there's this old cave with this witchy woman in it who like reads your future with puka shells. You know, like there's weird stuff. So I had a good experience. I learned a lot. To me, I felt a lot of privilege learning what it was like to be like I was often one of the only white people anywhere to be seen. And I remember telling people afterwards, I feel like it's really important to learn to be the minority at some point in your life. But I also had, like, there's still white privilege there. So it's a weird, I feel like, you know, not a full understanding, but just a lot of important life lessons living there, I would say. So not your, you know, not where I would recommend your first nomad experience. Definitely get some experience under your belt, learn how to use Wi-Fi from your phone and like all sorts of things. Hard mode.
Digital nomading on hard mode.
Yeah, exactly. But as a place to experience, like if any of that sounds appealing to you, it was like the people there are amazing and wonderful, and I will remember it for that. But it's a hard one. So that was just a big city. Lagos is one of the biggest like growing populations. It's a huge city. There's a lot of communities that feel like the buildings are falling apart, really poor communities. So it's a lot to see and take in. It's a lot of stimulation, but also it was a good reminder to me. It's a place where there's people always gathering on the streets, hanging out together. And I love that. Like, I feel like a big problem with the U.S. is we're all so individualized and split up and the big houses and whatever. And I love in Nigeria that, like, people gather. And they're gathering on the streets. They're playing cards on the streets. And they're hanging out. And it's so fun to see. So that's a lot. But that was my take on my month in Lagos, Nigeria.
When you were talking about the safety thing, it kind of reminded me of when I was in Cape Town. Because you see all the queues. Yeah. Nothing happened. There was like nothing that made me feel unsafe. There's no moment I felt unsafe. Right. But there's all the cues around that something unsafe is going to happen. Yeah. There's barbed wire on top of electric fences, on top of warnings, and like, guards all over the place. Yeah. It's just ominous. It's like a...
You're like, this wouldn't exist if it wasn't needed. Yeah. And we had our house had barbed wire all around it with a big fence, you know, like a big cement, like not see-through fence. And there was a guard at the door 24 hours. So that is like, it wouldn't exist if it wasn't needed, but I never had an issue as well. So that's a good point, where it's weird when you see all of these cues. I was just talking with some of my friends from Israel who, like, not even having to do with right now, but just in general, their time there, they're so used to, like, soldiers in the IDF who just are standing around everywhere with guns, but, like, they have been those soldiers. They know it's just kind of part of the culture, and it doesn't scare them. It doesn't seem like anything's wrong, but they were saying anytime friends would come visit them, they were so alarmed. Like, why are there men with guns, you know, or women, you know, with guns standing everywhere? And they're like, what do you mean? I haven't even seen anyone. But it's because they're so used to it. So it's really interesting to think about. But that was one of the more adventurous ones.
Let's take a break right there. If you listen to this podcast regularly, or if you're listening just for the first time today and you like it, do us a favor. Hop on, whether you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and just give us a quick review. It'll take you like 5 seconds or so. We really, really prefer the written reviews. We share those amongst our internal team. Sometimes they're funny.
Very happy.
Sometimes they have great recommendations for shows, which we always take into account. We've got a couple stockpiled. We're going to have to get maybe a few specialists for some of these more niche topics that you've had, but we do appreciate them, and we really do appreciate the reviews. So if you can help us out with that, it does.
Yeah, the little 5-star subscribe, thumbs up, stars, whatever
it
is.
It's changed to today. Whatever it is today.
We appreciate it.
Throw it in there. We appreciate it. Number 4 was totally random, is Montreal, which is not a destination by any means.
No. Not for nomads.
Not for nomads. No, sure. Yes. You go to Montreal, but not
vacation.
as a vacation. Yeah, sure, but not as a digital nomad. And it just came about. One of my friends was talking to me. He's like, "Yeah, I want to go to Montreal." I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "Well, supposedly the food's good." I'm like, "I'm in. Sounds good."
And that is how we end up in locations. Tell Jeff food
and I
is
could
good.
Also take. Yeah, and I could also bring my dog with me at the time.
You
I was
did.
able to bring Charlie
that.
with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I brought her with.
Why did you bring her there and nowhere else?
It was something to do. Customs was easy to bring
in
the
Canada.
pet. Bring a pet. Right. In Canada, some places a little bit more difficult than others. Canada was pretty easy, and it was one of the few places remaining where you could still do the emotional support animal thing. And
Yes.
until people ruin it with like spiders and mini ponies
What?
and all that kind of
That was a
stuff.
thing?
Yeah, they don't. Most airlines don't allow that anymore because people abuse they
With
started
other
registering
animals?
random animals. Yeah.
I
As
never knew.
like really, yeah. Look up the list sometime. They've got like emotional support, snakes. People try to bring
Ugh.
spiders on planes, and eventually they're just like, no,
All
we're
right,
not.
we're
We're not
done.
doing this. This is ridiculous. We're not doing this anymore. So it was one of the last remaining spots I could do that. And I thought, yeah, I'd actually never been to Canada before. I've been near the border a whole bunch of times in the States, but never been to Canada. And I thought, yeah, let's just give it a shot. Didn't really know anything about Montreal. I kind of travel that way. I don't know much about the places I go until I just get there. I'm like, all right, let's just experience it and see what it's like. And here's the experience. So Montreal, very, very big mixing pot of everybody. It is French Canadian, so the primary language is French. So just right off the bat, you're going to be hearing a lot of French speaking as a first language. You'll see like the signage on the road is primarily in French, but the cultures are very, very mixed. You see a ton of different people from all over the world. And with that, you've got this really, really interesting like combinations of cultures that you see in food. So when you hop on any food delivery app, generally you'll see your token Mexican place, you'll see your the Asian food that you're looking for. There you'll find everything and tons of selections of it. They're very, very big on it. So the food scene there I feel like they put a lot of pride into it, and it was also very, very good. That was kind of exciting. The nightlife was also very, very cool too. People were very welcoming. There's a lot of stuff to do. We stayed near Old Town, and there was a lot of very cool bars around there. Always something to do, and it's all walking distance too. It's kind of the stuff that you're looking for in a digital nomad place. Things that you're not looking for. And some of the cons here, and probably why it hasn't really popped up on the radar, is there's really not a community there. There's some co-working spaces, and that's just hit and miss. A lot of times, you're not getting your digital nomad community. You're getting folks that work remote, and they just want to get out of the house a little bit. And I'd say that was 90% of it. And then you get your college students that just don't want to work at home, and you'd get a lot of those people working. There were co-working spaces, and then you get your cafes where people were co-working as well. But community, I'd say next to nil.
Yeah, it's really just a big city that you happen to be living in. It's not like an easy nomad destination community. Yeah.
It was actually fairly inexpensive. I forgot to include that in the prawn.
Which is surprising. I would think it would be more expensive there.
I don't know why. I mean, it is a major city, and then if you look at some of the other cities, Vancouver is like a top one that a lot of people vacation in.
Yeah.
Extremely expensive, like prohibitively expensive.
Yeah,
Toronto,
that's why
a little bit more expensive.
I think it'd be more like that. Yeah.
If you're coming from just typical North American prices, you could just take off a quarter to a third of that, and that's what you're going to be paying for. I know, really, really surprising for really good food, coffee, and all that stuff. It was just, and rent was like probably just take about a third to a quarter off. So it was very affordable. Yeah, community just kind of non-existent. Once it turned into October, my God, it gets cold there. It gets cold, and it gets so cold there that they actually have an entire underground system where you can walk from like walking system.
Wow.
So you can walk from one mall to another mall to another mall, so you don't have to expose yourself
some college
to.
Campuses have that, yeah.
Yeah, and I think there is a substantial college community there as well. There actually is. We went by it, so that makes sense. And it's all designed so you don't have to expose yourself to the whatever air like where it hurts your face.
No, thank you.
Really, like, yeah, I lived in Boston, and they're like, oh yeah, that's balmy. I was like, oh, okay. I really don't know what cold is until you live in Montreal. So yeah, it's something that's available
so go
for
in the summer.
a few months a year if you want to. Don't expect community, but you're gonna get your Wi-Fi. You're gonna get really good food culture. You're gonna get cheaper prices, and you can do some local experience stuff. Hop on Airbnb experiences, which is a very underrated thing. When you land in a place, check out Airbnb experiences. You get some really cool ideas for local stuff to do. Other than that, yeah, that was 3 weeks, a month working from there, and it was fine. Not top of my list of recommendations, or would have popped up earlier, but it was fine. The pros were really, really good. And then the cons were like the biggest one for me. Love the community. And when there's not a community, a little bit of a struggle for me.
Yeah, perfect. All right, taking you to Asia for this one. So I've spent a lot of time in Asia. I love this continent. There's so many great digital nomad locations. This particular one was more of a recent one. So I guess for me, Bocas and Lagos were actually both in 2019, which was, I guess, like almost 5 years ago. So this one was earlier this year in Sri Lanka. Was there almost a month, and I would say Sri Lanka as a whole is easily one of my top favorite countries. Like, I just went there and fell in love with the country, with the feeling of it, just like the sunshine, the palm trees, the people, the food, the beach. Like, it's super laid back. I don't think I basically didn't wear shoes for a month. Nobody wears shoes there. That's what I learned. So as a whole, it's just, and
grounding.
I loved it.
We talked about this.
Yes.
A lot of grounding.
I'm a big fan of grounding these days. And if you don't know what it is, humans we don't have our bare feet on like the earth as much as we should. And it's actually really healthy for you. Like, your body actually needs it to take some of the, won't go into the science, but like to take the electricity essentially like out of your body that we get all day. But if you think about the way you probably normally live, like, we just have shoes on and rubber on our feet, and we go from inside to inside to shoes, and you never touch the ground. So literally in Sri Lanka, I was just like walking around the beach every day, walking on the grass, walking around outside, just never any shoes. Like, if you get in a taxi or a tuk-tuk, which is how you get around a lot, like, you'll see the people there, like, they'll have shoes, they'll have flip-flops that look like they've been worn for 4 years, and they're just like next to them while they're driving barefoot.
Like
so
mine.
It's like, yeah, everybody loves to be barefoot there. So it just feels like it's great. And honestly, I've talked a lot about it with some friends recently, just thinking about health. And I know we talked about this just especially compared to the States, where it feels like there's so many just preservatives and things added into the food. I feel like I felt my healthiest there because the food, I think just because the food was natural, like locally sourced, like real things, not bad ingredients. I was barefoot walking around, I was on the beach, it was relaxing. It was just like it was good for my soul and my physical body, I would say. So that's like Sri Lanka as a whole. I lived in 2 different places when I was there. One was really it was like a yoga retreat kind of place, almost like your Mokran experience. Our friend Danielle had a place there that she loved. She'd done a yoga retreat, and she was like, I promise, it's just it's just one of her favorite places in the world. So the Wi-Fi, I would say Sri Lanka is limited. One, it's kind of far away from anything. So if you don't know where it is, it's a tiny little island. For country size, it's a small island, like near India. I'd say it's kind of sort of like off the coast of India. And it's just, the Wi-Fi is not great. So I would say it is really far away from a lot. So that probably limits it. It's hard to get to. But also, I would say the Wi-Fi is probably one of the biggest factors that limits nomads. But there definitely are a decent amount of nomads there. But the first place we lived, were you going to ask a question?
Oh, I was going to say, are they not doing Starlink yet?
Not yet. Didn't get any of that there. So
that might really put it on the map.
I think it will.
If you start getting that in there.
I feel like Sri Lanka is going to be like the next Bali. So I feel like, Bali, Thailand are getting really overrun with tourists. And to me, Sri Lanka it feels similar in a lot of ways to those places, but it's not overrun at all with tourists or nomads yet. So go there while you can. It is amazing, and it's great to get to places before those are taken over. I guess it's just part of life and what happens, and it all sort of runs through. And like Bocas, maybe it'll then leave and somewhere else will become the thing. Like, who knows why, but I think it was actually one of the reasons I loved it so much. So again, I stayed in some places that were really much quieter. But again, I love to just wake up, walk on the beach. We had a bunch of friends who were with us, so that sort of filled my community when I was really in the middle of nowhere, it felt. And then for 2 weeks we stayed, I think it was at an outsite, I can't remember now, in a little town called Weligama. All the names there are so fun. They're like such fun little town names. But there's a place right next to it called Marissa. So it's spelled different than my name, but it is my name. I think it's Mirissa is how they spell it. So Marissa and Weligama are right next to each other. And they're bigger nomad towns. You'll find the backpackers, you'll find the yogis, and you'll find a bunch of surfers. It's an amazing surf town. A lot of people go to surf for months. And then there are digital nomads. So where we stayed, there was a community, there was a co-working space in the place we were living. And there was probably, I don't know, around 20 nomads, I would say, on any given day, in this, probably more, 20 to 30 people who would kind of come for the day, work there. So you really did have, if you wanted a nomad community, it's little, but it's everyone you know is there. So it's a small community where you kind of get to know everybody. but it definitely exists. So as far as it kind of checked all the boxes, except Wi-Fi again just wasn't fantastic. So it was there, it existed, and in the place, like people all came to that co-living space because it had the best Wi-Fi, really probably on the island. And that's why all the nomads gather there. And it's like, they had ergonomical chairs and an office type feel, and right on the beach, and you could hop in the pool, and they had food, and it was just an easy place. But overall, I loved Sri Lanka. I highly recommend it. It's definitely workable with Wi-Fi if you do your research ahead of time. So we were going to stay in Airbnb for a couple days that someone recommended to us. Didn't look at the Wi-Fi. We just kind of said yes and went, like, big nomad mistake. And the Wi-Fi was unworkable for sure. So we had to arrange,
you've been around
get a
too long
refund.
for that kind of stuff.
I was so tired. I'd been moving so fast. I was so tired. Yeah. And our friend, it was like a local friend had suggested it to Danielle, but she was thinking of it more from she wasn't a nomad. She worked as a yoga instructor. And she was like, oh, this place is so cute. And I just didn't have the bandwidth to think, and I just said yes, and we got there, and we're like, we cannot work here.
Oh, no.
So we left and went to the co-working space, and such is life. We learned our lessons, but yeah, it's doable. It's amazing, and I loved the small town feel. We had a couple friends there, so it was good. I ran into another nomad friend I knew who I'd met in Thailand the previous year. He had friends there. So there's nomads. They exist, and there's lots of exercise classes and yoga classes and surf lessons. It's like if you want to really just kind of be at the beach, be in nature, be outside, be barefoot, eat good food, and get work done. And there's tons to explore. There's also one morning with the time change, a lot of people were working Eastern hours, so they would work in the evening. So we went and did a full safari, one day before work. We woke up at 5 a.m., drove an hour and a half, saw a bunch of elephants, a leopard, a bunch of ostriches, all these animals, drove back, did our work day. So it's cool. There's a lot to do. I never think about Sri Lanka as being a place where you can go on safari, but you can go on safari. A lot of people, I have a couple of people I know who went on their honeymoons there. And you can go whale watching. There's great scuba diving. There's so much to do in Sri Lanka. We spent days. You can drive in the middle of the country. The landscape is beautiful, and there's lush, jungly mountains. You can take a train through. It's awesome. So, highly recommend it. That's my experience in Weligama, Sri Lanka.
Looking at our list here, Sri Lanka sounds like the most up and coming. And probably the most appealing to me to be a place where it's this is probably where the community is starting to develop. And it seems to check most of the boxes for me.
Yeah, once Wi-Fi gets a little better, it checks all the boxes.
How is it getting there?
How is it? I'm trying to remember where I flew from.
How's your travel?
I don't, honestly, I can't even remember where I traveled from or what. I think I flew from the States from something. It was a long travel day. But otherwise, you fly into Colombo, which is the main airport. And then I guess this adds a little bit of difficulty to it. It's usually depending where you're going in the country, a 2 to 3 hour drive from the airport. They have to coordinate a shuttle. So and that's where most people live, on the to the towns where most nomads and surfers are. So it is a little bit of a haul. And then also time zone, and just with Asia, it's harder for a lot of people depending on your job, depending on calls. So that can be trickier. I was working a lot of mornings and nights just to have calls with you guys or other clients or things like that. So that's usually just in general a factor with Asia, but it's pretty decent. It's easy to organize a shuttle. It's easy. Things are not super expensive. So yeah, it's kind of hard to get to, and the Wi-Fi is not quite there. So I think that's why it hasn't really blown up yet, but I really do think that it will.
Yeah, get in there early.
Get in there early while you can before it gets ruined. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. All right, so what's number 6 to bring us home?
So my last one is a little city in Mexico. It's called San Miguel de Allende, and it is about 3 hours away from Mexico City. But what is unique about this spot? What's unique about it is not a digital nomad spot by any means. For whatever reason, though, it turned into kind of an expat spot. A lot of people have moved, retirees have moved to this tiny little city kind of in the middle of nowhere. And what's interesting about it is it just feels, there's kind of an air about it. It feels very, very comfortable. It has the Spanish colonial type of feel to it. So you've got the cobblestone streets, and you've got the painted windows with the potted plants in the windows, and all of that stuff that as you're walking down the street, you're just feeling it feels alive.
It's like
it
the
just
colorful,
feels
quaint Mexico town.
colorful. Yeah, feels alive, feels colorful, and not overrun. You're not seeing all of the digital nomad coffee shops. Okay, so for those of you who don't know what a digital nomad coffee shop is, digital nomad coffee shop is designed specifically to set up your laptop. It's going to have the quinoa bowls. It's going to have like all the westernized drinks that you would expect to have there.
Bowls.
You know exactly what I'm talking about.
I know,
It's a digital nomad
latte.
menu. Yep. Doesn't have any of that stuff yet. It's just still funny. Feels very, very local, and for whatever reason, it turned into kind of a hot spot for people to retire to, and I can see why, because it's very, very comfortable. The climate is perfect. Like, it's just very, very temperate year round. The food there is outstanding, and the people are really, really nice. So it's just kind of like a little haven that nobody's really done anything with yet. So if you were to go as a digital nomad, you're going to get probably not the community that you're looking for. You're going to get a retiree community, but you will see a few sporadic digital nomads here and there. But what you will get is you're going to get like a very vibrant culture, a very colorful city, a lot of good food, a perfect climate. You're going to have pretty decent internet. It's almost just like one of those places you look at and go, why has this not picked up yet?
I was going to ask why, because I also know someone from, like, I know a couple from Atlanta who has retired and chosen that destination as where they will go. So I was like, why are the retirees going but not the nomads? Like, what do you think
I think it makes more sense to retire, because just getting there it's not the easiest. It's a little bit out of the way. Like, we went to Mexico City and we took I think it was a 3 or 4 hour bus ride to get there, and you can fly to Querétaro, which is, I think, even then about an hour away still. Okay. So it's not somewhere you just like hop on a flight where you can easily land in Mexico City, Oaxaca, Cancun. It's not one of those just like, you got to work your way towards it.
Get there. Right.
Yeah, you got to work to get there a little bit. So I think
the Wi-Fi is strong.
When I was there 3 years ago, it was workable. So it wasn't like
Maybe that's a limiting-ish factor too.
Yeah, it was workable. If you plopped 4 people on phone calls at the same time, you're gonna crash your internet. That kind of thing.
Yeah, maybe that's why it's still not fully taken off.
This is 2020, so it may have gotten better. Which for retirees, like,
doesn't
whatever,
matter.
straight it doesn't matter so much.
Right.
But for our purposes, it wasn't the best, and maybe that was a bit of a limiting factor. And there's no easy direct access to the place. But everything else was just kind of one of those, like, pinch myself, like, why are there not more people here? How is this not overrun?
We love that.
And I do kind of seek these places out, because seeing it, and this is probably a completely separate topic for a different podcast, but seeing Mexico City 3 years ago to now, it is getting overrun. Like, we may have done. Yeah, it's getting, and it's there's a lot of pressure gets added to areas when you've got a lot of people traveling to places. So the rent goes up, the costs go up, and then the locals suffer because of that. It's hard to see that. Me and Diego have talked about spread out. Like, as digital nomads, listen to these podcasts and spread out a little bit. These less impacted areas, because it won't impact them nearly as much. So if
there's such a balance between, like, it's like at first it helps local communities in some ways because it brings money in, right? And then it's like a tipping point where it's like too much that then we're driving up rent places. People are displaced from where they've been able to afford to live for a while. It's such a fine line, and it's sort of like part of life. But I do wonder, once Starlink or like other Wi-Fi, just throughout the world comes, if people will be able to spread out again and not have to be in these Wi-Fi hotspots and can be anywhere. That will be interesting to see.
Yeah, really hoping that's the case, because then all of these places we're talking about that are up and coming, people can be like, oh, and that's no longer up and coming. This is another possibility for me to work. And some of these more impacted places will get a little bit of pressure relief from some of this. And we'll have people spread out from not just Mexico City, but to San Miguel and Valle de Bravo and some of these really, really interesting places that have a ton to offer, like San Miguel de Allende does have to offer, and you can still get your work done.
How did you end up there? just back to like that, just one last question with that one. We talk about like, you said you seek out the kind of places, but like, how did you choose there? Why, when, how did you end up there?
Yeah, we had a list we wanted to travel up and down the center of Mexico. So just like not going through just checking out everything top to bottom in the center, and somebody put together a list. It was just it was a Google Sheets list of different places, and like just a little bit of research into what's around that area, what kind of features are there. One of the things that was really cool there that appealed to us was a horseback ride where you could actually, like, you can't do this in the States, but you can actually go full gallop on these horses, and it would take us to a top of a ravine, and we did rappelling off the top of this ravine. It was like 120 feet up. It's the scariest I've ever been. And it was one of those fun, like, challenge yourself types of moments where it's like, I'm too scared to do this, so I should probably do this kind of moment. And we saw that was something that you could do there. There's a few other things, and we're like, with that, and it looks workable, and somehow nobody's going there. Let's just see what it's all about, and let's see why, if there's any reason we shouldn't be going there. And we ended up staying there for about a month or so, and it was well worth it. I'm interested to see what this place looks like. I feel like I leave a place for 3 years and then come back, and you're like, whoa. So same thing with Puerto Viejo. It's like people are going there to work. Like, I couldn't get a phone call out 3 years ago.
Right.
People are going there to work
now. People have been talking a lot about that changing so much. Yeah. But Mexico is so underrated. Like, there's so many amazing cities, towns, beach towns, mountain towns. Like, it's got it all. I love Mexico.
It's got every climate. It's got like everything that you could possibly be looking for, climate-wise, culture-wise, food-wise. It's like many countries within one. It really is a special place, and I'm very jealous of your new visa, your new residency. Rather,
there. You can do it too. Love it. Well, I think that wraps up our 6 random locations that we've lived as digital nomads. Again, this actually was, as you mentioned earlier, if you want to write us in, first join our email list. It's beachcommute.com/email. You can sign up. We send out different remote jobs that you can do so that you can get a remote job, start traveling in this way. But also, someone recently wrote us in and actually said, he said, I'd like to hear more of like random destinations you guys have lived. It's really fun just to hear naturally what they're like, what was the town like from a first, person perspective, not just reading a blog post that's going to tell you 10 things to do there. So honestly, that's truly the reason why we recorded this podcast. So as we said, if there's something you want to hear, if you have a suggestion, we really do it. And as Jeff said, we have a couple other requests that we're still looking into, and we'll get some other experts on. But we really do listen. So join our email, send us an email, hello@beachcommute.com. Anything else, Jeff, to say as we wrap this one up?
That's it. We will see you again next week. Keep sending in the requests and writing us in at hello@beachcommute.com. We love it. Talk to us. Talk to us about travel.
Talk to you soon. Bye.